Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Densinkers podcast. Today, as lifting enthusiasts, we'll be talking about why we lift, the importance of lifting, and what it may bring to someone who's never lifted before. Why ancient civilizations admired strength, why they thought it was a virtuous act to pursue, and what not. Let us introduce the hosts of this podcast today, which is the same as always. Myself, Big Papa, and our co-host,
the giant, muscular, freakazoid, ultra, super, omega, tanning in the sun, butt naked, like everyone should. I don't know what my name is, but we're just gonna do it. Let's go, people.
woo! Fire me up! Now what are we
Let's see how far we can push our bodies and our minds.
Now what are we gonna be talking about?
We are talking about what lifting has taught us. What, excuse me, what kind of introspections we have had, you and I, about lifting. And we're going to share it with you, and we can't wait to hear your guys' responses for this more in-tune subject.
Wonderful. Well, why don't I start us out with a quote, try and set the tone of what we're going to be talking about today. Now, there was a man, a philosopher, called Socrates, and he had this to say about strength. No citizen has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. What a disgrace it is for a man to grow old without ever seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable.
Absolutely beautiful.
Now, a lot of these ancient civilizations really admired strength. They thought it was essential. The Greeks believed that in order to train your mind, you had to train your body, and to train your body, you had to train your mind, and kind of find this equilibrium of mind and body where both are strong and getting sharp like a sword on a whetstone.
Yes. Continue, sir.
Let's see. We've got the Athenians training vigorously for the Olympic Games. We've got the Spartans who were training from as young as 8. All of them doing some sort of gymnastics, calisthenics, dumbbell training in order to become strong. Why this was a virtuous act? Well, they thought that strength would allow you to defend your household, make you able to protect others, and be a courageous soldier. And all through these civilizations, they've had strength games. The Indians and Turks had their clubs, where if you were able to spin these 85-kilogram clubs around your head, you were basically a king in their eyes. We had the Chinese people, where if you could lift this cauldron used for religious practices, you were greatly admired as a strong individual, and it also showed that your family was strong as well. It's quite funny how strength has evolved through time, and how in these societies you were just viewed as like the tier top of the the pyramid group of hierarchies, and now strength is kind of belittled. It's not as needed in today's world, as we are living in the safest of times, except if World War III comes. But
let's go, baby.
Woo!
I can pilot a drone strike. I played fucking Call of Duty, dude. My KD's off the chart.
But what was I saying? Well, we got to talk about what happened to strength being an admirable trait to have. Now it's like, oh, you're a gym junkie, or oh, you're a freakazoid. Why do you want to lift all day when you can just sit on the couch and get fat and watch Netflix? What's the
And
point?
watch 90 Day Fiance and just
Yeah.
mind numb and die.
Yeah, what's the point? Why would you want to strengthen your body? For what? You know? Are you going to be hunting a mammoth later? Who knows? You know? You've got to be prepared. You know, victory loves preparation.
Yes. Do you think, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, because to me what it looks like is that strength physically was a virtue out of necessity up until now. How do you feel about that?
I think there is some some people that would agree and some people would disagree. Because
Do you disagree?
I have points that could disagree with that. It's like we're talking about toxic masculinity today. Ooh, if you're too big, we don't want you. Girls are liking dad bods and all this other stuff.
That's a psyop, dude.
Who knows? Who knows what's going on with that? But for a lot of the strength stuff, it was like, oh, we've got these military nations. But like also, like, it was just something that they did. I think, you know, when we don't have all these distractions we have today and people are grouped together, I think, you know, people have this competitive nature within them. And I think groups of men coming together, they would just be lifting big stones to see who was the strongest. And these sort of activities where, you know, they didn't have the distractions we have today. You know, you did your work and all that, and then it's like, what are you going to do? So, not sure if it was exactly necessity, because the Olympic Games have been around for thousands of years, and, like, you were greatly admired, and, like, even that's lost its charm. You know, like, not many people care about the Olympics anymore, and I think it had its lowest viewership ever this year. And,
yeah, big time. Well, I mean, didn't they take out, like, wrestling and, like, a few really key, exercises that define the Olympics? Like, no one wants to see shuffling, bro. That's not a test of the pure physical might or pure technical perfection of the human body. Like, you're just throwing a thing on ice, bro. Like, get out of here. Like, golf, too. Get that out of here. But okay, so how about this point? Because I feel like maybe I didn't explain that. I really didn't do anything to explain that point. I literally just said it. Virtue out of a necessity, because in the good old days, where you had to fucking chuck a spear at a deer to make sure you had food for the day and for tomorrow. With all of the things that you had to do, that you had to keep your body in such good shape and running really well. The games that were done, like the wrestling or if you think about it, all of the native, all of like tribal cultures, their games kind of revolved around their necessity to survive. Like whether it was shooting arrows at targets on horseback and seeing who could be the most accurate with that, who can throw the spears the farthest, who can, I kind of view the games that they played as extensions, as practice, as like a fun way, an engaging way for them to keep on like sharpening their skill set. You know what I mean?
Sure, and I think it depends like what time period, what civilization you're talking about. Like the point you just described, definitely for me, what comes to mind is the Mongolians. I think most of their strength challenges involved like who can shoot the furthest with the bow, can throw the furthest spear, and a lot of their strength involved like wrestling and all this stuff, which was because they were a warrior nomadic tribe, you know? For the like ancient Greeks who were really into art and all of that, the body was a thing of beauty and is symbolic of, someone taking care of themselves, someone being physically fit, kind of like these traits we should aspire to be, a physically fit human with a great mind and, someone who's like unable to run a mile or they're out of shape. It's like, do we really aspire to be someone who's out of shape? And also, I think nowadays it just seems that like everything's so sexualized, like even the body is sexualized, and like people are getting in shape for women or let's see.
Other way around.
Yeah, other way around. But still, it's like, back then it was a thing. The male body was a thing of beauty. The female body was a thing of beauty. It would create art around it and all that. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think we've become such a hypersexualized civilization that we are forgetting the virtuous side of developing the body and mind, perhaps.
Yeah, I like what you said, to touch up on an earlier point before I dive into the problem which you just described about. Let me write that down actually, so I don't lose track of it. Let me talk about what the first point was, the projection. So I liked what you talked about the human body in Greek culture being more of a thing of art and a thing of beauty, and just like I mean, if you think about it, they did a lot of sculpting, a lot of sculptures, and the human bodies were almost always nude. There was barely any covering to them, and it wasn't because they were like fucking thirst trapping out here making wrestlers dummy thick with the cheeks and shit and having their dick just hang out. It wasn't anything, I don't believe, to do with sexuality. It's exactly what you were describing. The human body, like the appreciation of the human body as a work of art, because it is a work of art. It is a sculpture you can change, and that's a point we were going to talk about later. And then to go to the hypersexualization point that you made, unless you want to interject, but that's kind of how I feel about because you always see, like, now people get uncomfortable. They even want to. I hate it. Some people want to remove the penises or any sexualization of the statues because they think it's sexual. And I'm like, how arrogant to like put your morality, impose it on this thing that was created by totally different people with a totally different set of virtues. But anyways, the hypersexualization of the body, like you're saying, I think it comes, if we want to bring in Nietzsche into this conversation, this is almost the perfect place to do it, because everyone knows, I mean, my God, it's so pervasive in every aspect of our society. The human body is a sexual object. Whether it's music, whether it, like, Jesus Christ, music, TV shows, whatever, it's seen as a sexual object almost like first. Like the first thing you do when you see a naked body is like, that's sexual. And I think that stems from the materialistic worldview that we've discussed before.
Mm-hmm.
In this post death of God civilization that we're in, where the spiritual man has died. We don't have a spiritual connection to the universe anymore. We're looking for it. I'm reading about that now. It's kind of fascinating, but without going too much on a rant, because we're in a civilization now that's post spiritual. And now the only thing we think we know is the material worldview. And this is everywhere in our life, whether it's science, addressing the human body as literal just chemical imbalances and you just take more chemicals, whatever it is, everything is material, and therefore the body is material, therefore hedonistic pleasure and the sex. And that's what's, I would say that's like the seed that sprouted this ugly tree that we have now.
Yeah, and what's it called? I mean, if you want to look at music, I think music is one of the defining factors of what, like, the group think of a civilization is. Like, we had the 60s where it was like the romance era, where it was like really like heart-feely music, like, oh, I'm going to take this damsel on a fine date and kiss her under the stars. And then you pan to today where it's like, I'm gonna pop that pussy on that boy's face, and you're like, well, what am I listening to right now? So it's like, I think you can just look at music as a way to like kind of see what civilization's doing. And then we also have, like, we're in this crazy capitalist time where there's so much money afloat. Marketing and advertising has taken up this hypersexualization probably since like the 80s, maybe like post hippie era, where it's like, now it's like, oh, you want to be whatever, but like, it's like, oh, you get the nicer car, you get the nicer house, you buy these clothes, you buy all this stuff, and now you're like, you're gonna be getting some partners to have sex with. And it's like, it's like, if that's your like defining thing for why you're improving yourself. I think that's a sad reality we have to face, and I think so much greatness comes about in periods where we're not hypersexualizing everything, where it's like, oh, sex sells, let's just absolutely hammer it, you know. So many great times came from when we were really developing, like Da Vinci, like, and Tesla, and all these people. They were able to achieve so much because they weren't distracted with all these needs that were pushed upon us and all that, you know. So
Yeah, yeah. The point about capitalism you're bringing up is a very, very important one, because unfortunately that is the ugly machine that's kind of driving culture. Because if you think about it, who can really blame the girls that go on TikTok and you know, post the dancing or post the whatever with sexual connotations around their content? How can you really blame them? I mean, I can blame them. I will blame them, and I do blame them. But I understand why and how much of an influence is on that decision for them to do that, because capitalism is rewarding the ability nowadays to kind of gather people's attention. It's a commodification of consciousness is currently going on in capitalism. And so if these girls can make a shit ton of money by, you know, dancing in a way, wearing certain things that make them more desirable, and obviously desirable sexually, then that's what they're doing and why they're doing it. That's a huge problem with capitalism that a lot of people talk about. Is it's kind of dependent on the virtues and values of a society. If like in a time now where there literally is really no like set values anymore, you know, it's really just relative morality, and everyone is like defaulting to, you know, the last man behaviors of pure hedonism and pleasure of the body and living for literally right now and nothing else matters, then that's what capitalism is going to hyperfixate on and provide to us. So if you think about it, it's almost like a symptom to the illness, but the greater illness is our lack of spiritual connection and deeper sense of meaning and morality.
for sure. And also, like, while yeah, there's some issues with like these capitalist ideals and everything, I think it's more so like a technological problem. And then we had like the COVID lockdowns. So it's like, yeah, these girls posting all these nude photos, people weren't out having sex and all that. And then I think people got addicted to pornography and these OnlyFans and all this other stuff, where it's like, now they have like this weird sexual relationship with an online figure who doesn't even know them. And I don't know, it all gets blown out of proportion, where, you know, I think it's more so a problem with people's addiction to technology rather than capitalism, because capitalism capitalizes on how to make money, right? And it's like these girls are just gonna get their bag, stack that paper in a pyramid to the moon or something. But yeah, I think it's sad. I think we need to reject that sort of side. I think it's like so dehumanized and hypersexualized and all these other things, where I don't think people are becoming the best version of themselves. So I think we need to have sort of like a revolution on becoming better. But I think what makes you a better person is so loose, because so many people have a platform to spread their ideals. So it's like what I think would make a really good person and developing themselves and like learning new skills, getting in shape, and you know, becoming more intelligent, more well-read, being a helpful citizen. People would say, oh, I'm fat shaming, I'm, you know, I'm anti-stupid people, I'm anti, whatever, you know, you get what I'm saying. But it's like, now we live in this time where it's like everyone has a platform to shut down any, I think any positive progression through thinking about the negative side of what that person's saying. But sorry, I got on a rant there. But back to what you,
as we all do, brother.
Yeah, back to what you were saying about like the TikTok stuff and how people are able to get famous through you know, whatever, booty shaking and doing these dances and all that. Like, that's something that, like, I don't think is a civilization problem. I think that's an agenda being pushed by these technological industries, or whatever you want to call them. Because this was a really interesting fact I learned, that in TikTok in America, the people who get on the algorithm on the For You page and all that, they're pushing these people who are doing these dances and doing these things that take almost zero talent, and people are becoming famous through being talentless in a sense. And then you go to TikTok China, where TikTok was developed, and the people who on the For You page are like doing engineering and science and like building stuff out of like materials that they've just found on the street, and they're building like these amazing machines or whatever. So it's like that was so weird to me, that like we've got two different sides, where it's like this is getting pushed in America, and then STEM field stuff is getting pushed in China. So the youth of America is being pushed this agenda where it's like, oh, you don't need to like become intelligent or work. You just do these TikTok dances, which are mindless activities, and you can become famous. Rather than like influencing the youth of our world into like being helpful citizens and being able to develop this nation further, now we've got this crazy TikTok dance trend. You know, it's crazy.
Right, like no talent involved. And you know, it's kind of funny because you can kind of relate this to if people want to try and downplay this, which I don't. If anyone tries to downplay even the base fact, excuse me, that China does do different algorithms for us versus them. You can't. There's no downplaying that. That is exactly what it is. It's trying to shift our culture into more, I would say, of a less productive one. You can think about this in relation to SoundCloud rappers. You know, whoever is succeeding, people will look up to them as idols because they're succeeding, because they have a lot of money, they're doing all the drugs, they're doing all the girls, they have all the cars and the houses. So the same way some of these, I really hesitate to even call them artists, but you know, it is what it is. These mumble rappers, whatever, that are super famous, that is promoting a lot of people to try and follow suit to try and get that bag. So you end up with tens of thousands of fucking people on SoundCloud trying to be rappers, and dedicating so much of their precious youthful time and resources to that. And that's exactly what's happening with the TikTok too. It's no different. If there's success to be had, people will fight and grind and try and get there. But most people do not get there. So most people end up failing, wasting a lot of time. And then what do they have to show for it except for, you know, failed PR attempts to become famous on TikTok? It's like, where the hell? What are you going to do when that fails? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So we've got on a bit of a
It's an attack on America, Ryan.
We've got on a bit of a tangent here. We were talking about.
Reel it back.
We were talking about lifting, and now we've kind of gone on a route where we're talking about virtues and how these virtues define what a nation thinks is important. And now we're in this kind of free space, kind of black hole era where people are just throwing about all these ideas and there's no unification. We're so divided with what we think is good, what we think is bad, that it's mind-numbing. You just don't know what to think. Like, we've got all these people with completely to the right, completely to the left. We got people all over the place, in the middle, in the left, in the right, in the whatever. And it's like, where are we going as a nation? Where are we going? What are we thinking? What's important? So let's talk about what we enjoy as an activity for lifting and why we do it.
Yes. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, the biggest thing that I have learned in reflection about my extensive experience with lifting is it is actually has been quite a good tool for helping me understand how to set up plans to accomplish super long-term goals. It teaches you discipline and organization because for me, being a powerlifter, I've learned the smartest way to train is to plan long-term, break it up into medium and short-term in terms of like monthly blocks, yearly kind of, you have different seasons for different things. and daily kind of workouts, and it has taught me organizational skills that I can apply to other aspects of my life, and important. I don't know if they're facts, but important observations I've made about my growth in powerlifting, in pursuing a physical sport that I realize, is reflected with with the mind as well, which is going to be very useful for, more of the important things in life. Pushing yourself, the mind-body connection, understanding our limits, and understanding the limits and understanding the ego, I think is ties into the organizational thing, because I'm sure you've had it too, where you really feel good, you really feel a certain way on a specific day or whatever, and you say, screw it, I'm throwing the planning out the window. I'm going to do what I want because I feel amazing. And what usually happens is you do really well for that day, but now you're off cycle of your plan, and it becomes more of a setback. So, but I don't want to keep talking. I want you to contribute to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a endless amount of things. Like, it's like I always feel like when I'm not physically active, you can talk about running, any physical activity, weightlifting, doing a sport, anything. It's just so good for you to have your blood moving. It's like I feel like when you're in a position where you're just sitting around all day, you're not moving much, your blood flow stagnates, you're not elevating your heart rate, it's not pumping that blood around your body at a rapid rate, which I think just elevates your mind, allows your mind to think a little better, and it's just so overall, for me, just so healthy, because I can just tell. When I don't lift for a few days, I start feeling depressed, and whether it's an actual depression or not, I think it's just your body's slowing down, stagnating, your body's not moving. That blood flow is so important. And also, I do it for longevity. I think learning how your body moves, especially now that we're sitting at desks all day for our work, we're not outside physically active, except for those blue-collar workers. It's just so important to be moving about, learning about your body, because you have one body, that's it. So it's like if you're sitting around all day and like you get to an old age and like it's, you're not going to have a good time. You don't want to be in a wheelchair when you're 70 because your body's just atrophied from lack of use. And back to what I was saying about Socrates, it's like, well, I feel like it's so sad to become old and never see your full potential. You can develop your mind and your mind's potential, but are you foregoing a lot of the experience that is life by not seeing what you can do physically? I lift for youth and longevity. I think that blood flow helps with the lymphatic system and all these other things to promote less aging, perhaps. I lift for combating depression. I lift for enduring pain and getting results from it. You do all these reps and then you're like, I don't know if I can do another one, but you continue and you're seeing a progressional improvement in your physicality, which I think gives you so much confidence and motivation that, I'm going to quit here. But it's like, if you quit, you won't be able to get better. So I think that's really important. I lift to mold my body as a blacksmith molds iron. And I lift for overall control over myself. I think you were saying this about how it helps you with long-term planning. It's like you set a goal and you're able to achieve it. And like so many things in life, you can't see the manifestation of what you were doing. It's very hard to see that progressional goal take place, right? So it's like with this, it's like, I can lift this much weight. A year later, I've added so much weight. And I never even thought it was possible that I would be able to lift that much weight at a later date. So it's like, you did something, you didn't quit, and now you're here. Same with weight loss or weight gain or muscle gain or strength gain or improving in your sport, whether it's a combat sport, a normal sport, whatever it is. And it's like, you get so much understanding about yourself, what you're capable of, your ability to not quit. It's like, it's just so great overall.
Yeah. I want to continue on one of the points you made about uh, it's connected to one of the points, but I don't want to bring it back up because it was kind of a while ago. But the people's perception of like time and time commitment, I think, is also a huge problem. I think one thing people should realize about any sport is the newbie gains, right? If you think about a giant block of marble and how a sculptor, one of the first things they do is kind of get rid of a huge mass of it to get to like their working size, and then they work on the details, which takes more time. So like the finer details take more time, but generally they can shed off a large amount of the mass very quickly. And I like to use that example with anything physical because those are like the newbie gains. If you start, like, you don't have to start something like lifting weights or wrestling or running or cycling, whatever. You don't have to start by doing it 10 hours a week. If you do anything, I don't know, 3 hours a week, whatever it is, 3 45-minute sessions, whatever works for you, that's going to keep you coming back. What you'll notice is like the first 2 years, you make huge leaps of progress. You don't have to, I think people get too caught up in that, is like thinking about, they overestimate how much time they would need to like see anything. And that's the reality of everything physical. Like I picked up wakeboarding, and the first like year or two, you get really well, you make a lot of big progress. And then when you get to like the later stages, the more, masterful stages, not that I'm there, I'm just saying like as an example, that's when things become harder and you need to put more time to get more detail. But you don't have to do that. You can kind of just keep in this like golden zone where you are making progress, you're doing very well for yourself, you're seeing benefits, and you're not sinking that much time into it,
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I really like that. I think it's just so important for some, like, if you don't have a hobby, or whatever you want to call it, where you can see that progression, it's like if you work at a job and it's like, there's not really a ladder of becoming like the CEO or something like that, you're not really going to see that progression over time. And I just think it's so important, like taking up an instrument, taking up a sport, taking up some sort of artistry. I think it just improves your overall mindset and gives you something to live for, where it's like, oh, if I don't do this, like, I'm not going to improve. And it's like, I think we need to add more of these virtues to people's lives, where it's like, it's of the utmost necessity that you take up something and you see how good you can become. It's something where I think a lot of people live their lives without seeing their true potential and finding out like what they were made to be. If you just follow a path that was set for you by your parents or something else, or society deems your activity to be worthless, it's like you're never gonna find out what you're capable of, whether it's lifting or anything else. It's like, when you first start drawing, you draw like a stick figure, and then there's some people who can draw pictures that are hyper realistic. But nowadays, it's like we've got this instant gratification where it's like, I want to be able to draw the hyper realistic person the first time I start drawing. And then you if you don't have that progressional stage, you'll never really truly appreciate what you've achieved, or you won't even start at all. So it's like, I think we need to maybe, instead of giving so much gratification to the final result, we need to give more gratification to the process, which is the most important thing. I think everyone, like, if you've accomplished many things or you've had a goal that you've set, everyone wants to get to that goal as quickly as possible. And then when they achieve that goal, they realize that the journey was the most enjoyable of it all, not the final goal. Because once you reach your final goal, what do you do then? You have to find a whole new goal and start that journey over again. And because you were rushing to get to that goal that you'd set for yourself, you didn't enjoy the process, and then you might not have the motivation to set another lofty goal. So I think gratification is really important.
That's actually beautiful, because that statement about the journey rather than the destination, that's a huge one, and that's actually one of the more famous parts of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, where he talks about when you're climbing the mountain, metaphorically, all of the greenery, all of the algae, all of the trees are on the sides of the mountain, not the top. In other words, that's where you're going to find the most enjoyment. That's where you're going to find love for the thing you're doing is in the journey. That's where the life is. And then when you get to the top, you've overcome everything. You're above the rain clouds. You're at the peak, and you get to look down exalted. But like you said, when you get to the peak, there's no more climbing. So it becomes kind of an existential crisis for a lot of people, which is very problematic. But if you keep it permanent, almost like Sisyphus, always carrying the rock up the mountain, like for me, like I don't have numbers that I'm chasing where once I get there, I'm going to be like, wow, I feel so accomplished. There's nothing left for me to do. I'm done. It's my goalposts are always moving. It's an infinite process of just, I can always be stronger. I can always look better. Almost like keeping a perfect ideal version of a role model, like not for me, but like Jesus is the most obvious figure to choose here. Where like you have an ideal, perfect representation of everything you want to be, and you're chasing that. You'll never be there. You'll never be perfect, but because you're shooting so damn high to the sky, you're going to land in the stars, and be very, very much better than where you were before. And so that's very important.
Yeah, and we can look at like the rise and fall of people who've been so set on their goal or been lost on what to do after their goal. I think like Conor McGregor's a great example. I think he wanted to become 2-division champ, have a ton of money, and then like look what happens,
Ronda Rousey too, bro.
Yeah, and it's like
she was a fucking dude. She was a freak. She was massacring everybody, and then once she became complacent from being the greatest, that's when she got fucking head kicked and murdered.
Okay, great. So that's what I was gonna say. I think if you set yourself really big challenges, that they'll humble you. So it's like, I think maybe like learning a very difficult piece on an instrument. Like if you're not a really good musician who's been doing it for years and years and years, it's going to be almost impossible to achieve. But then you take it note by note. Can you play one note? Yes, I can play the one note. And then you've got a million more notes to learn. But still, it's like you take it small pieces at a time, and you get humbled by these grandiose goals. And I think it's like in the gym. I used to set goals, and now I really don't. But it's like every time I hit the goal, I was never happy, right? I was like, oh, I'm going to hit 225 on bench, or I'm going to squat 315. And then I get there, and I'm like, okay, want to bench 315. I want to squat 405. And it's like the goals just keep going up and up. So, yeah, that's a good point you made. I think you've got to become you can't become complacent, and you have to always humble yourself by challenging yourself, because the ego is really dangerous. If you allow yourself to think that you don't need to train anymore, you don't need to do this because you've become so good, it's ridiculous. Like no one's perfect in this world. There's never been a perfect person ever. So everyone has flaws that they can become better at. And I think social media is doing an injustice to this, because we've got all these filters which try and make people look perfect, or the idealistic version of themselves. And then it's like, like, what are you going to do when you see people in person and they're like, you look nothing like how you presented yourself online? Which I think,
catfish, baby.
Yeah, which is like what's scary about like the metaverse and all this, is like people are going to be able to present themselves however they wish, and it's like I think
but if you just always stay in the metaverse, that's just who you are, Ryan. That's who you become.
I know. Scary stuff. Is there any other points you want to make?
Yeah, I do have a few more, and then I will be done.
Okay, perfect.
One of the ones that I like a lot about the fitness journey with lifting, and it's a point that you brought up earlier, but I wanted to kind of go in at it from my own perspective.
Let's go.
Was where's the baby? Let's go. Was the instinctual output, the quote unquote the lion in the cage. By working out, you have to understand that there are certain instinctual needs that you have to meet. If you are to live a happy and healthy, and if you want to live in the Greek sense, the good life. We are animals, and we have been human beings and we've lived a certain way for many hundreds of thousands of years, however long we have kind of maintained this kind of existence, where there were things foraged within us, foraged beyond, us being able to change it within a generation or two, things that need to get done. And being physical and exercising is one of them. There's plenty of studies. I don't need to name them, but you can look them up if you disagree with me and you want to try and counter my points here. But there are plenty of studies of people of how much of a positive impact working out has on your body, and working out to any degree. It doesn't have to be killing yourself in the gym. I mean, one of the more famous studies that I liked was just a short morning workout, going and walking your dog. For the sunrise, like 6:30 in the morning, walk your dog, which is another great reason to have a dog. They're so helpful. But is go for a walk, go for a nice walk, a few miles, come back, and you feel great. Whenever I have the ability to work out in the morning, so like Sundays doing my yoga, I feel amazing the rest of the day. There are endorphins released in your body. You feel great. You didn't kill yourself physically. Like it's not like a hard squat deadlift day where I'm just murdering myself. But it's enough to go back to the point you said about engaging the body, getting the heart rate up. Excuse me, because it is a muscle. You have to work it out. Getting the blood flow, getting the oxygen in your bloodstream into your brain. You're oxygenated. You feel great. You worked out. You're more than likely outside. Like not a lot of people like to be inside, obviously. So go cycling, go running, go swimming, whatever it is. You're outside. You check off so many boxes on the list. And everything is just blissful. It's amazing. So just to remember that, the instinctual necessities that we have to take care of, or else, you're kind of, you do get depressed. Plenty of people do. Like a lion in a cage, you think that, or a killer whale, I should say. I mean, how many times have we seen the detrimental effects of keeping a killer whale in a cage where they get severely depressed and they even kill people because they're so fucking depressed and paranoid. They have to feed them. Sorry, I'm ranting, but this point is the animal point is kind of like exactly what I wanted to get across. Is here you have an orca whale. Its life in the wilderness is not fucking easy. It has to swim in Arctic waters in the pod, communicating, coming up with hunting strategies to be able to eat and survive and to live and to feed their kids. They're highly developed beings. They're probably one of the smartest on the planets. They come up with amazing hunting tactics. They're amazing, but their life is by no means easy. It is by no means like enjoyable. Yeah, it's not enjoyable, but they have to do it, and they're actually happier doing that than being in a fucking cage with all their needs taken care of, because all their needs aren't being taken care of. It's not just do you have a safe place to live and do you have food. There's a deeper underwater. Like there's a deeper sense of everybody that's like the iceberg. You are the iceberg floating on the top, but then under the deep waters of the abyss where your iceberg floats, that's your true self that you have to find and like work out.
Yeah, so let me just intercept. You know what happens to those...
Yeah, I was ranting too long.
No, you can keep going, but those orcas, what happens to them in captivity is they're so depressed, they're all on antidepressants. They live a life that's not meant for themselves, and they have to hop on antidepressants. Otherwise, I think they just won't eat, and then the aquariums will be out of an orca, And look what happens in our society. How many people are hopping on antidepressants to be able to compete in this rat race of a career ladder, or whatever you want to call it. The amount of people that I've talked to who are just casually talking about they're on antidepressants, I'm like, do you really think it's like a mental disorder, or are you living a life that wasn't meant for us humans? And it's like, indoors from 9 to 5, the stress, the stress that's like not a external stress, but a internal one, and the pressure and all this stuff put upon you for bills and all this other things. It's like, I just can't believe that's what humans are meant to be, or what we're supposed to be, and like...
It's ignorant to the facts of reality.
I mean, also, I'm like a romanticist with those ideas, because I'm like, we should be in a tribe, we should be hunting, everyone should have their own task, and then everyone has like, there's no one really greater, because we need everyone do their task. Otherwise, the tribe suffers. But now it's like this tribe is so big and so large, and like, it's like dehumanized to a point where it's like, people don't even appreciate like the sewer workers, the blue collar workers, all these people that like keep our civilization going. And it's like, now it's like we talk about Kim Kardashian, and like you wonder why we're having problems with our society when we're viewing people who are talentless or not hard workers or doing anything that like makes them a good citizen. Like that's what like the Romans were all about, was like if you were a patrician, it was like you had to do some sort of politics, you had to be helping others, you had to be doing all these things, and like it was your pride and joy to be a good citizen, and like that was of the utmost importance. Not like like I don't know, not like posting doggy style pics on your Instagram.
Literally, dude, literally.
Yeah.
The duality of man, my brother, the duality of man.
Yeah. Ben, any other points before we wrap this up?
Yes, we can create the bodies how we want to. It is a sculpture. We can help each other grow. It's a team effort. Don't ever feel afraid to ask questions wherever you go. People are willing to help. People love to help. And you can make anything suit you and your needs. You are an infinitely complex being, as we all are. We are, beings of great divine energy and light, and we can find things to suit us. There's plenty of opportunities. The horizon is infinite. You just have to do the legwork of going out and adventuring and finding what suits you, and you will find it, and you'll love it, and you'll become great.
That's great. Yeah, I'll add one more point to that, which is don't compare yourself to others. It's like if you see someone and they've been practicing the same time as you have and they're much better, you can't compare yourself to that. It's like, who cares if you need to put in 1,000 more hours to have the same proficiency as someone else? You'll still get there either way, and you'll be at the same end goal or line or whatever you want to achieve. It's like, put in those extra hours and be more competent as a person. It's like Kobe Bryant's a great example, where it's like everyone was at the club, he was at the gym. He was doing 3 workouts instead of 2. He would do 4 workouts instead of 3. He was always putting in extra hours, and that's why he set himself apart from everyone else. Even though he may have not been more genetically gifted, he put in more hours and became great because of it.
100%. Yeah, I love your ending point there about comparing. The healthiest way to live is just to compare yourself to yourself.
Yep.
I just found a Socrates quote that I did not know of until now. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, that'd be perfect to end it.
Yeah, let's end it with our boy. Even though I talk shit about the Greeks, I love them. They're great. They had a pretty decent society, from what I understand. So here's the quote from Socrates: "We can do nothing without the body. Let us always take care that it is in its best condition to sustain us." I'm like, that's a very good point.
That's great. You know what? Let's throw in another quote. Why not?
Go for it. Shoot.
I don't have the exact quote, but Nikola Tesla compared the body to a well-made machine, and it needs to be oiled and lubricated in order to work properly. So he compared himself to like an engine or something of that nature, where it's like you can't just neglect your engine or it's not going to work. You need to oil it. You need to make sure everything's working. And that's how you keep yourself in a good condition.
Do you know why that makes so much sense?
Why is that?
So we as human beings anthropomorphize everything. We only know the human experience, and that's what we project onto everything. So when we build machines like cars, they are a reflection of how we operate. If you think about it,
yeah.
Where like the engine is the heart or the brain, and it needs certain things.
The exhaust is Uranus.
Going.
Yep.
That's right. We be shitting, boys.
All right. On that note, dense thinkers out.
That's right. Time to play some Elden Ring. Oh my god, I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
Woo!
My PP has never been harder, bro.
Fire me out. Great podcast. See you, boys. Like and subscribe, I guess.
Oh, that was on the